Hi everyone, David Aragona here, taking a look at one of many stakes races at the fairgrounds this upcoming Saturday. It is race 10, the grade 3 Mineshaft for older horses going the mile and the 16th distance on the dirt. And this is a pretty high quality fare for a grade 3 event early in this season for the older handicap horses. A field of 11 signed on and a lot of exciting up and comers in this race that could make some noise, some 4-year-olds that'll be making some of them their stakes debuts, other that are coming out of some top races as a 3-year-old that are getting off their starting off their 4-year-old campaigns or 5-year-old campaigns in this grade 3 event. So a lot of intrigue in this grade 3 Mineshaft. And you see on the morning line, the two horses vying for supremacy are the number 4 Olympiad at 3-1 and the number 5 Miles D at 7-2. Both of those are 4-year-olds, like I was mentioning, that are kind of lightly raced, that could be on the precipice of a big year in this 4-year-old season, but they're going to try to get things rolling in this Mineshaft. Towards the outside, you see another 4-year-old, the number 10 Untreated, also listed as the morning line third choice at 9-2. Some prices in this race that definitely are not without a chance, though. We're going to get to some of those as well. Before we get to the contenders, though, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And for a field of 11, there's really not that much speed signed on. Exactly no confirmed front runners in this race. The courses that could be towards the front end, though, are runners like the number 1 Sprawl, who has been the leader on occasion, as well as the number 4 Olympiad, who does have some tactical speed. He's won races in gate to wire fashion, but definitely not a horse that needs to run that way. There are many deep closers in this race, though, like the number 3 Title Ready, the number 5 Miles D should be coming from towards the back of the pack, though he's shown more tactical speed in the past, and the number 9 Happy American, who's kind of the Silky Sylvan of this bunch. He'll be launching from the very back of the pack, and we'll see how much pace that horse gets to close into, because he usually needs quite a bit of it to be successful. Let's get into some of those main contenders and talk about those 4-year-olds with a lot of promise, beginning with Miles D. And let's take a look at his last victory in the Discovery Stakes back in November at Aqueduct. And the horse that Miles D is running down this day is a pretty good one in Speaker's Corner. That is Speaker's Corner on the lead in those blue silks. And there's Miles D ranging up to the outside in those distinctive Peter Brandt green silks. And he's just going to wear down Speaker's Corner as they come onto the wire in this race. But that's a pretty good horse that he's getting to at the finish. I do think that the 1 1/8 distance of this Discovery really worked in Miles D's favor, because you can kind of see the way he runs here. He's more of a grinding type. Stamina is his greatest asset. He is not a horse that possesses a lot of early speed, or just not a big turn of foot in general. So he's never the kind of horse that's going to be successful in races that really turn into a sprint to the finish. And you saw that was the case back in the Travers during the summer in Saratoga, when his two main rivals, Central Quality and Midnight Bourbon, just kind of sprinted away from him in the late stages, going the 1 1/4 distance. I do think a 1 1/4 is right up the alley of Miles D, but he just didn't have the speed to go with those top 2 contenders in a race that really did turn into a sprint to the wire. But he ran well that day, and I think he's backed it up in his 2 subsequent performances, trying the 1 16th around 1 turn 2 back at Belmont Park, but that performance was a little bit underwhelming, had to work hard to win that race as the 1-5 favorite, but he stepped forward last time in the Discovery, and that felt like the kind of effort that could set him up for a big 4-year-old campaign. He'll try to kick that off here in the Mineshaft, and he's definitely one to consider in this wide open field, though I think he's going to face a pretty tough challenge in the form of another 4-year-old, the one who's pegged as the morning line favorite, and that's the number 4 Olympiad. Let's take a look at his last out victory from January 15th at Gulfstream Park, when he won an optional claiming race going this same 1 16th distance. That's him in the yellow cap with the star on his face, turning into the stretch with the lead, and just gotta love the way he widens away from this field in late stages. Junior Alvarado kind of throwing some crosses at him, just shaking the whip, not under full pressure to get to the wire first, winning this race by well over 7 lengths. He got to set or stalk a pretty slow pace in the early going. You can see some of those pace figures are color-coded in blue, but I loved the way he came home, widened on that field through the stretch. The 1:26 final time rating that he got for his speed figure, that's the kind of number that puts him right in the mix against grade 2 and grade 3 company, this being a grade 3 stakes race, of course. The number knocked down a little bit to a 1:22 Timeform US speed figure due to the fact that he was kind of with the slow pace that day, but he had shown a lot of promise in prior races. He had run that big race behind Baby Yoda back at Saratoga over the summer, but he's done well stretching out since then. I thought he ran deceptively well two back in that grade one Cigar Mile at Aqueduct. That was the race where I thought Arad Ortiz kind of underestimated how much horse he had underneath him coming around the far turn, sort of let Olympiad drop out of the race a little bit prematurely, but he was coming on well at the end that day and was beaten by a trio of good horses in American Revolution, Following Sea, and Plainsman. No disgrace losing to any of those runners. And I think Olympiad is coming into this Mineshaft in a very good form, and he projects to get a great trip right up on the lead, similar to the trip that he worked out last time in winning that allowance race. The other four-year-old that could attract a lot of support in here is the number 10, Untreated. Let's take a look at his last out victory when he won at Aqueduct on New Year's Eve. This was going the one-turn mile, and there's Untreated ranging up on the outside in those Team Valor silks. He's going to have to work pretty hard to take this race over, but do note a couple of things about this performance. December 31st at Aqueduct, a day that was pretty speed-favoring. Horses that were on the lead or close to it seemed to have a real advantage. Furthermore, Untreated had trouble coming out of the starting gate. We didn't watch the start, but he broke awkwardly a few steps slowly, as did a few horses in this race. So he did well to run down those two pace setters in the lane. The problem is he only got a 110 time Formula US speed figure for that performance, and that's a race that if you look through the charts, either in DRF Formulator or in time Formula US PPs, and view the next races and the subsequent speed figures of the runners involved in that race, a lot of them have regressed. It hasn't proven to be the strongest race over time, so I question what Untreated was really beating last time. I thought he actually ran better in his race two back, first off the layoff back in November at Aqueduct when he beat a pretty decent horse in Adair, but he's going to be really stepping up in company here, and I think he does have quite a bit to prove as he tries stakes company once again for Todd Pletcher. Another horse who's a four-year-old who could attract some support in this race is the number 8, Obesos, and people might remember this one from when he ran in the Kentucky Derby last year, and he actually ran pretty well in that race to be fifth behind some very good runners. Medina Spirit, Mandaloon, Hot Rod Charlie, and Essential Quality was fourth in that race. I mean, following those horses home is definitely nothing to be ashamed about. Since then, Obesos has only run twice, though. One of those came in the Matt Winn Stakes back last May at Churchill Downs, and he was coming back just 4 weeks after his Derby fifth place finish. And he did lose that race to Folsom, who never really panned out after that, but looked like a promising horse at the time. Obesos came back off a long layoff last time out at the fairgrounds, got in a performance going this distance over the local track, and he did win that race, but only got a 112 time Formula speed figure, had to work pretty hard to beat Intrepid Heart, who would be a very big price in this race if he were running back in the Mineshaft. That horse is really more of a high-level claiming allowance type, so Obesos is going to have to do better to take down this field, but he has run well in the past. He's got that 118 time Formula speed figure from the Kentucky Derby. Personally, I'd love to see this horse eventually turn back in distance, maybe to some one-turn races, even on the East Coast. But Obesos, he's definitely a horse that has shown ability in the past. We'll see how much pace he gets to close into as a deep closer in this race. Another horse that is going to be looking to recapture some past glory is the number 7, Midcourt. And let's take a look at his performance two back, going all the way back to last June of 2021 at Santa Anita. As you can see, just a 4-horse field this day. Midcourt got a pretty good trip in beating these 3 rivals home. Got a nice speed figure this day, a 101 Beyer, 123 time Formula speed figure, but this was just an allowance race, not beating the toughest competition. The good thing about this is that at least Midcourt showed within the past year that he could still run a competitive speed figure, something that he hadn't done too much lately. He's coming in off a string of losses into that race. He came out of it a month later. You can see those layoff lines in the time Formula SPPs, those dark blue lines between races indicating that he has not been able to string races back-to-back recently, but he did come back off that victory, 2 back to run in the grade 1. Awesome again last October at Santa Anita. Very disappointing that day. Couldn't get out of the gate, something that he struggled with on more than one occasion over the past couple of seasons. And also when you go back to that race 2 back that he won and got that 123 time from US speed figure, you can see that light pink color coded race rating box indicating speed was good at Santa Anita that day. He got a slow pace up front. So if he breaks well this day, he could get the right kind of trip because he does have some tactical speed. Just a little bit skeptical that he's going to have everything work in his favor and whether we're going to see a good performance from him coming off the layoff once again. And furthermore, his trainer, John Sheriff's, not a guy that usually likes to ship outside of Southern California, and he really has not had much success doing that over the past 5 years. Actually, I looked it up in DRF Formulator. John Sheriff's has just run 5 horses outside of California over the past 5 years, and none of them have won. So I'm not really viewing Midcourt as a horse that's going to change that trend. A horse, though, at a bigger price that I do think you might want to consider is the number 2 Silver Prospector. This horse is coming off a disappointing effort off the layoff last time when he tried the 5th season at Oaklawn Park. But if you go back and watch that race, and I didn't say it in the replay, but if you go back and watch it yourself, you can see that Silver Prospector did not have the best trip. He was wide around the first turn, about 4 wide. 5 wide around the second turn, just never had any opportunity to save ground that day. That was a race that, if you go back and watch, it was really dominated by runners that were either forward or towards the inside, and he was neither of those things. So I do think that Silver Prospector deserves a pass for that race. He's not the most consistent runner, but on occasion in the past, he's run speed figures that would put him in the mix here, like 4 back when he ran behind that subsequent Dubai World Cup winner, Mystic Guide, last February at Oaklawn Park in the Razorback. So he does have it in him to be competitive in a race like this. He's getting Joel Rosario aboard. That never hurts. That recent Eclipse Award winner. And he's also drawn well towards the inside. So he's one that I would want to have in the mix. And the same goes for another 15-1 shot on the morning line in this race, the number 11, Big Dreaming. This horse, he's run pretty sparingly on the dirt, just a couple of dirt starts throughout his 12-race career, and none within his last 5 races. You can see recently he's only run on turf and synthetic surfaces, as you can view in these Timeform USBPs with those green and blue color codings for his last few races. But he does have plenty of ability. He showed that too back when he won so impressively at Turfway Park over the Tapeta surface, getting a very strong 1:23 Timeform US speed figure for that performance. While he's run primarily on the turf, I can't say that I love his turf races. I actually think he's better on synthetic and dirt. And the dirt races are not showing on his PPs in this screenshot. But if you go back and look at his dirt races, in those 2 races, he's gotten speed figures on the Timeform US scale of 119 and 115. And that 119 that he got back in October of 2020, he ran really well to win a 1 mile and a 16th race at Keeneland that day, the same distance that he's facing in this Mineshaft. And furthermore, Big Dreaming's got the tactical speed to be perched just outside of Sprawl and Olympiad, those likely 2 early leaders. So I do think he can work out the right kind of trip in this race, and he feels like one that's flying under the radar coming into this, but he does have the requisite ability to get involved if he can show up on the dirt in this spot. Let's throw out my picks for this race, and I'm not trying to beat that morning line favorite, the number 4 Olympiad, an appropriately named horse for this current period of time as the 2022 Olympics are taking place right now in Beijing. But Olympiad, I do feel like he's coming into this Mineshaft as a horse who projects to get a great trip and seems like one that could be sitting on a really big 4-year-old season just based on what we've seen from him in his last few races. So I put him on top, but some of those horses at bigger prices that I mentioned, I do want to include underneath and in exotics wagers as well as in race wagers like the pick 4 and pick 5. And those are the number 2 Silver Prospector, who I've gotten 4th, as well as the number 11 Big Dreaming, who's also 15-1 on the morning line, who I do think is very dangerous to get a big piece of this Mineshaft on Saturday at the fairgrounds. Good luck if you're playing this weekend.